Today's story can be distressing to some viewers. The facts given in today's video have been resourced from studies. However, this video should not be considered for educational purposes. No medical information given in today's video shouldn't be used without further research from the viewer. I am not a medical professional. I am a criminology student with an undergraduate degree. This video was made through the interest of the creator. Elizabeth Rose Struhs was only 8 years old when she passed away. This story is still early into the investigation, but it is alleged that her death came at the hands of her 46-year-old mother and 50-year-old father. It's shocking to hear when a mother and/or father kill their own child. The act of filicide always hits differently to the other forms of homicide. Filicide is the killing of a child by a parent or parent guardian, but this doesn't necessarily mean young children. In fact, a study from the US found that 18% of filicide victims were over the age of 18. But whether it be neonaticide, the killing of a newborn within 24 hours of giving birth, or any other form which ends in the death for the young and helpless, we can't help but ponder why someone would commit such acts to their own blood. G'day there everyone, welcome to Bedtime Crime, a channel dedicated to serial killer stories, murder stories, and much more. So support the channel by liking and subscribing. Let's get into today's story. The story of Elizabeth caught my eye, not only because of the terrible crime that was committed, not only because this is another crime that happened close to where I grew up, but I was more curious why parents or parental figures could torture and kill their own children. I guess the simple answer would be that past experiences, possibly with the offender's own parents, could be a reason. Certain research does suggest that child abuse can repeat itself through the generations. I reviewed this story to 1. Raise awareness of Elizabeth's story, and 2. Take a closer look at why parents sometimes torture, which ends in killing their own children. This story about Elizabeth Struhs was quite unique to most cases of filicide. Elizabeth was a part of a big family. She had 7 siblings, both younger and older. Her mother Carrie ran her own business selling at market stalls around Gatton and Upper Coomera in Australia. Her father Jason was a night worker. The mother took care of most of the parental duties according to reports. It appeared from the outside that Elizabeth was a happy young girl. However, sadly, Elizabeth was a girl who suffered from type 1 diabetes, which was diagnosed back in 2019. Type 1 diabetes is a serious condition where your body can't make enough insulin, and without this insulin, blood sugar can't get into the cells to help create energy. This in turn causes the cells to build up in the bloodstream. It can be life-threatening if not treated correctly. Well, you could probably guess where this story is going. But first, more on Jason and Carrie. Jason and Carrie Struhs joined a religious group some years ago. However, this religious group wasn't a mainstream religious group. Though not a lot of information has come out, reports from the eldest daughter Jade said that the church they attended was corrupt and, quote, wasn't quite fulfilling the whole religion. The religious group could be seen as more of a cult to some. They would call themselves the Saints. It's reported that the people in the group considered themselves true Christians, and a reason to prove it is that they could speak in tongues. A strange way to prove that you are so-called true Christians. After the parents joined the religious group, rules within the household got more strict. The eldest daughter Jade eventually left the household after coming out to her parents about her sexuality. The parents reported this to the religious leader and asked for his assistance. Jade sat down with the leader where she was chastised for being gay. Jade did the right thing and eventually left the toxic household at the age of 16. But sadly for the rest of the children and Elizabeth, they were still living under their parents. Now, Where this religion is dangerous is some of their beliefs. It is believed that their God heals sick people, and that there is no need for doctors to get involved. This kind of belief would be a ticking time bomb for Elizabeth. According to reports, it is believed that parents, Carrie and Jason, stopped giving Elizabeth medicine for her diabetes on the 2nd of January 2022. Over the next 5 days, it is believed that the only attention that Elizabeth would receive were prayers and songs. It is believed that Elizabeth died on January 7th. However, it wasn't known to authorities until January 8th when paramedics were notified. It seemed that their God they believed in was unable to help Elizabeth, and the religious group knew that. There are reports saying that Jason, the father, notified authorities. However, some reports say that a member within the group were the ones who notified the ambulance. Around that time, it is reported by neighbors that there was singing, praying, and chanting coming from the Struhs household, and this was happening all Friday night to the next day until authorities were notified. And when the ambulance eventually arrived, reports say that a female paramedic came running back out of the house, distraught. Jason and Carrie Struhs were charged with murder, torture, and failing to provide the necessity of life to their 8-year-old daughter. It is also unsure what kind of torture was inflicted onto Elizabeth, whether it was just failing to give Elizabeth medication or physically abusing her. But the definition of torture is an act committed by a person acting under the color of a law specifically intended to inflict severe physical or mental pain as well as suffering. If you are left untreated from type 1 diabetes, it can narrow the blood vessels, create heart disease, nerve damage, eye and kidney diseases, and or bring on a stroke. Elizabeth may have suffered from these symptoms, which led to her eventual death. We all hope that she didn't feel pain before she died. Now, I mentioned that this story was unique because it is not the common way certain parents torture and kill their children. However, the reason why Elizabeth's parents and certain other parents who tortured and or killed their children are somewhat similar. And the reason is usually because they think they are doing what's best for their children. A study from Child Torture as a Form of Child Abuse 2014, Journal of Child and Adolescent Trauma, looked at children who were tortured by parents or parental figures. So, as an example, some of these children were fed caustic substances as punishment food, like they were deprived of water and as a result would have to drink from a toilet. Food also would be locked away. Some children were strangled until they passed out, stabbed with a knife, struck with objects, etc. This form of torture can be seen as sick and sadistic from the onlooker, and in some cases, it might be pleasurable for the parent. I don't know how to measure the difference between Elizabeth's story and the study. The study contains more violent measures of torture than what is reported with Elizabeth's story. Elizabeth's story is more about the parents who seem to be in a deluded or brainwashed state. However, this study mentions that the reasons why certain parents put this kind of torture on their children could be seen as a form of child rearing from the parents' perspective. Not all, but many children are usually at the mercy of their parents. Children see parents as a window to what society is like and sometimes think their parents' behavior is the norm. Some children may think their parents know what's best and they know the correct way of doing things. Therefore, it can be hard for children to understand right from wrong if brought up in a certain way. This includes morals, rules, and/or when parents have religious beliefs. It's unsure at this point in the investigation if Elizabeth was convinced that she doesn't need to take medication. Being only 8 years old may have been hard for her to understand the reasons behind taking the medication and how it could have saved her life. However, when she was diagnosed for diabetes in 2019, she spent a month in hospital learning how to self-insulate. She would have been taught the importance of this medication. Even if Elizabeth knew she needed the medicine, she was small and fragile. she wouldn't have had the strength to fight back in order to get her insulin. As mentioned before, torture was a way to discipline certain children. Through the abuser's eyes, the child shouldn't have acted out. Therefore, they wouldn't have to be punished as children. Some abusers could think, why should I feel bad if they were the ones that were doing the wrong thing? And possibly in Elizabeth's story, the parents might have thought, I have to follow my God, and if my child doesn't follow my God, this is a bad thing. For Elizabeth, her fate came at the hands of her parents. They thought that their way was the way to cure Elizabeth of her illness through religious beliefs. It can be concluded that the reason for Elizabeth's untimely death was due to the parents' form of parenting. What they thought was the right thing to do was obviously deluded. But we all hope that they realize their unforgivable mistake, and this becomes the first step to shutting down the dangerous religious group they were in. Jade, the older sister, is fighting to get custody of 5 of her younger siblings. Jade has also set up a fundraiser to help her get the necessities to raise her siblings. Thank you for watching and listening to Bedtime Crime. If you like that story, please show some support by liking and subscribing, and we'll see you on the next story.